what's your secret? You got the kind of vibe that leaves one speechless. It could be model multitasking genius. Yeah, you got it all.
Welcome to Breakthrough Conversations with Rhoda and Company. This is the podcast where we talk with leaders who've pushed past barriers, who built influence and created impact that reaches far beyond their own success. And today's guest is someone whose career tells a very powerful leadership story. Jada Reese began her career as a mechanical engineer, and over the years, she's moved into human resource leadership and ultimately served as chief human resource officer for major organizations, including Enterprise Bank and Schnucks here in St. Louis. And across more than 20 years, she's led through culture change, talent transformation, and organizational growth. She has also mentored countless leaders and opened doors for others along the way. That's not one person I say, do you know Jada Reese? Usually they know her or have heard of her. So today, Jada works as an executive leadership coach, helping senior leaders lead with clarity, courage, and authenticity. Powerful, good stuff. Mission work. And in this conversation, we will explore her career journey and the lessons she learned moving from technical expert to strategic people leader, and why mentoring and lifting others is one of the most powerful forms of leadership. The title of this episode is From Engineer to CHRO, The Leadership Journey of Lifting Others. Welcome, Jada.
Well, thank you so much.
I'm so glad to have you here. Jada, I was so surprised. I didn't notice about you. I had heard something about your journey and background being in engineering. So it's so fascinating to me, and I'm really curious to learn about. You started your career as an engineer. What led you to move from engineering into human resource and people leadership?
Oh, people want to know that one thing about me because it's an odd path, right? And I will say it was birthed from a bad experience with a recruiter who was quite rude to me.
Really?
And I was inside the company. I had applied for a role. And I just kind of said, hey, I called to say I hadn't heard anything. And he said something like, well, if we were interested, we would have called you. And I thought, did he really just say that? So that's where it kind of came from. But let me put a few more, a little more meat on that bone. I was trained to diagnose systems.
Right.
In engineering, we don't guess, right? We measure.
Right.
And in engineering, when something keeps breaking, you don't blame the part. You examine the design.
That is so true.
Right? You look at tolerances, stress points, points of failure. And at some point early in my career, this incident, I realized that the systems that needed the most design work were not mechanical.
Right.
They were those built around people.
Right.
And so I didn't leave engineering per se. I just started applying it differently. And so for me, when I look at an organization, I still see systems.
Right.
Incentives, communication patterns, pressure points, failure points. And I just traded machine design for leadership design.
Right.
And honestly, that human system is far more complex and far more consequential.
Yes, yes.
So eventually I realized that my most impact could be on system design, more so than in a factory. And it was the leadership architecture of the organization itself.
Wow.
So that's how I got here, and that's what I do now with something I'm dubbing the rare seat.
Yes.
And I'm diagnosing leadership systems the way an engineer diagnoses mechanical ones.
That's pretty powerful, and it's so profoundly true. And I knew you were going to say that the human design is way more complicated than any system that could be built. Wow, that is so inspiring, Jada. When you look back, what skills from engineering, and you mentioned a little bit of that, but what skills from engineering help you become an effective HR executive?
That was a good one. Probably three things. First, analytical rigor. Engineers, like I said, we don't guess, we measure, right? And that discipline transferred over into human resources. It's really how I approach workforce planning, compensation and retention analysis. I was that HR leader in the room who came with data,
Right.
not just feelings, right? And so, second, that systems thinking. You know, in engineering, you can't just alter one variable
Right.
without impacting everything downstream. And human behavior is the same way.
It is.
And so when you are coaching a leader, when you are looking at what development needs that an individual has, it really starts with that behavior.
Right.
And you can't touch that without impacting the people that work for them, their peers, the whole ecosystem of culture. And so it's that ripple, right? And so I have learned through engineering that that ripple has to be accounted for before you make the change.
Yes.
And then lastly, the ability to sit with ambiguity. Too often, people are uncomfortable with gray.
Right.
And so engineers are comfortable in not yet knowing the answer. You learn to hold ambiguity and that complexity as you work through a problem.
Right.
And in HR, sometimes we want to move too fast. We want to get to the answer because somebody is pressuring us.
Right.
And so I found that the right answer just takes patience.
And time, because you can misdiagnose. Yeah. And ultimately put the organization at risk.
Correct.
Wow. So I know you described what inspired you to take this path. And I know that somebody had to give you an opportunity and be able to visualize the skill set you had being very transferable. So I'm interested to know, what are some early moments in your career when you realized leadership will become your path? But I'm also interested to know a little story about how you got your first job in HR and what it was.
You didn't give me that one, but I can answer that too. You know, when I read that question initially, I think for me, it goes way back to middle school. I was on a trip with my science class, bicentennial year, and we went to DC, Philadelphia, and Washington. And New York. And we were standing in the hall where the Declaration of Independence was signed.
Wow.
Right? And we read that whole thing, right? And I'm looking at that as a young girl thinking, and some of these founders were enslavers.
Right.
And so how are all men created equal?
And
so I think, this sounds really kind of zen. But even at that young age, I did what I called the math, and it didn't add up. And so that's when I went on this journey. I think the seed was planted to question everything, to question mission statements and visions and company commitments, and really look at what they did, not just what they said.
Right.
And so for me, I've been checking those beautiful words ever since. And then trying to hold leadership around me accountable to walk in that walk.
Yes.
You know? So when I think about how I shifted from engineering, I was actually in a program called Inroads. That's how I got into engineering. And I was just probably the most model student because I became a lifelong learner.
Right.
And an opening occurred, and I got a call because I was an active alum. And I'm like, work for Inroads, really? Okay.
Right.
Not for profit. I'm an engineer. So we got to think about what role this is so that the pay works. And it was for what I call the lead position.
Yes.
And I said, absolutely, yes. And so that's really how I made the transition.
Wow. You've impacted a lot of lives from the Inroads perspective, too, because somebody introduced somebody to me, and she don't even live in St. Louis. And we were talking, and somehow we got to, how did she know you? Because she was originally from St. Louis, I think, and she mentioned Inroads.
Okay.
And she said, Jada Reese from Inroads, I would love to connect with her. Could you ask her if I can have her number? And I reached out to you. You gave me permission to give her that number. So way back then, you were impacting lives even then. So
Right.
to the point you just mentioned, the seed was sown early. You just destined to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
in this type of role. So you served as a CHRO for organizations like Enterprise Bank and Schnucks. What does the CHRO role actually require that many people outside of HR, they may not even understand that?
It's for me, it's more complex,
Mm-hmm.
right? So sometimes when you're in HR, people think the role is policies and compliance,
Right.
right? People outside the role think it's power,
Mm-hmm.
that they have to be afraid of
Mm-hmm.
HR. Well, for me, that's just not the power piece, but the
Mm-hmm.
policies and compliance, that's the floor,
Right.
right? That's not the house.
Mm-mm.
And so for me, the real work is the balance between playing offense and defense
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
And offense is that strategy work,
Right.
talent
Mm-hmm.
development,
Yes.
succession planning, those things that you can plan to happen in the future and that
Mm-hmm.
sets the organization up for success
Yes.
is building the pipeline of talent to determine who's going to run the
Mm-hmm.
organization in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then the defense is protecting the company
Mm-hmm.
from a compliance matter,
Yes.
mitigating risk, documentation discipline, making
Mm-hmm.
sure we stay out of the news and out of trouble.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But underneath that, for me, the difference was what we don't say out loud
Mm-hmm.
is that that's a 51-49 proposition,
Right. Right.
the company and the people.
Mm-hmm.
But you
Mm-hmm.
give the company a little bit of a nudge because
Yes.
they pay.
Mm-hmm.
They pay the bills, pay the
Right.
salaries, so they get the edge.
Mm-hmm.
But the employees never leave the equation.
Right.
We
Mm-hmm.
cannot, and sometimes our peers do forget that without the employees, nothing works.
Right.
Right? So for me, a CHRO who's worth his or her salt, they
Mm-hmm.
hold that
Mm-hmm.
tension
Mm-hmm.
and they hold it in parallel to the outcomes that the organization
Mm-hmm.
wants to
Mm-hmm.
attain. And
Mm-hmm.
so, from an HR perspective, what I've learned sitting in multiple seats in different organizations is that the leadership doesn't fail
Mm-hmm.
in that boardroom, it
Mm-hmm.
fails in the transition.
Yes.
And sometimes we fail to fill the gap between what we say a role
Mm-hmm.
is to do
Mm-hmm.
and that environment that the role operates in.
Yes. Yes.
And that's where that tension
Mm-hmm.
exists, and how a really good HR person stops and analyzes more facts
Mm-hmm.
than what's being presented.
Yes.
And the people who are not in HR, the ones who are not truly embracing
Mm-hmm.
the role that we play,
Mm-hmm.
they miss that nuance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's really about making sure the environment that people operate in optimizes them in their
Yes.
contributions.
Yeah, it's like when you were describing that 51-49, I visualize it being a very delicate dance.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't go in all about the employee or all about the company.
Correct.
You really do have to balance it.
That's
Yeah.
right. And when
Yeah.
there's a tie to
Mm-hmm.
be broken, it's the company, right?
Right, right.
But you don't get to that too often.
Right. Yes. So you led through transformation in complex business environments. What leadership habits help you succeed at that level?
The first one
Mm-hmm.
is just really perfecting the pause.
Mm-hmm.
Pausing before
love
you
that.
react.
Mm-hmm.
When you're leading through complexity or through stressful times, the windshield can get pretty foggy.
Yes.
And everyone's moving fast.
Mm-hmm.
The pressure's on. Everybody wants an answer. And the temptation is to match their pace.
Mm-hmm.
But the best decisions I've ever made came from me slowing down, taking a moment,
Mm-hmm.
and just clearing my head so I could see
Yes.
more clearly.
Yes.
The second is courage. This is
Mm-hmm.
one that I encourage anybody that I've mentored.
Mm-hmm.
It's naming what you see before anybody else realizes it.
Yes.
You got to name it, but you got to have the courage to say it.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's a leader who's derailing or a culture that's eroding or it's not walking the talk,
Mm-hmm.
somebody's got to say it first.
Right.
And that's usually me. And the third thing that I think is really important is that you build your relationships before you need them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, by the
Yes.
time you're in a crisis, it's too
It's
late
too
to
late.
build trust.
Yes.
And in order to, as an HR professional, help lead the organization through crisis, people have to know you, they have to trust you. So you have to like squirrel that away for a rainy day. And too often, HR sits in a tower.
Right.
And the best CHROs, in my opinion, they don't just manage the people function. They make the people enabled to achieve the goals of the organization. And so it's really all about the people.
Right.
And the conditions in which the people work. Culture.
Right.
Leadership. I think every individual deserves a great leader.
I do too.
And that's where I've spent most of my time. Any place I've worked, I start with leadership.
I feel so strongly about that, Jada. Two things that you said, everything you said is highly filled with wisdom. When you said the pause, what's been coming to me at this season in my life, as you know, I am looking for my next opportunity. And what came to me was there's power in the pause.
Yes.
And this is a pause, like that applies in anything in life, what you just described about pause. We make a better decision when we pause. And often our best thought is our third or fourth one anyway.
Correct.
Yes.
Iterations of
Right,
thought. Yes.
right.
Yes.
And then when you just spoke about the importance of leadership, I aspire to educate individuals and help them understand the influence that they have and the responsibility that comes with being a people leader. It's more than what people think it is. They think it's power play and all these things.
More money.
You can literally break a person's spirit as a leader. If you're a great leader, they're looking forward to working with you. They will follow you to job to job to job.
Yes.
And life is hard enough without having to deal with a bad leader. So when you are not a good leader and you're not intentional and you're not human-centric and not kind, you have the ability to cause anxiety and pain, and people are mentally unstable and they can't be their best selves. So to the point you made, everyone deserves a good leader. And I would love to have transformed people that want to be that and want to leave a more positive leadership shadow and leadership legacy. So spot on. We are aligned there.
You know, and if I may add, just to kind of piggyback off of that, sometimes HR and leaders have to have the courage to fix that broken rung in the leadership ladder. And it's not easy. I've sat around and we've just pondered and pondered and pondered while people suffer.
They do.
Yeah.
And they suffering and they're like, but they make money. They make money for the company. And that says the precedent you're setting. At the root of every issue that can be investigated in corporate America, it really boils down to poor leadership.
I will say amen to that. You get no argument from me. Yes.
So, Jada, what was one moment in your executive career that really tested your leadership the most?
Oh, I had so many. You know, especially when you think about being a female in corporate America, a female in engineering, being a Black executive. And yet the one I wanted to bring forth as the most difficult for me was more personally tied, and it was recent. You know, I lost my mom in November, and concurrently, I'm building a business.
Yes.
My mom was in hospice for 31 beautiful days at Evelyn's house. I'll put in a plug there. And it was just the most bittersweet time for me because I was building a practice. My mom was inactive, dying, managing my father, his health in a memory center as his power of attorney. My daughter, hundreds of miles away, was having real major housing
Mm-hmm.
issues.
Mm-hmm.
Her apartment flooded. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a lot. And all that was happening at the same
Same
time.
time. Mm-hmm.
And there was no convenient order. I
Right.
couldn't prioritize,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because life doesn't schedule grief.
No.
It just,
Yeah.
I didn't pause.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I look back on that 4 or 5 months later. It's not that I'm some superwoman, because
Mm-hmm.
I am not.
Mm-hmm.
But because the women I come from don't have the luxury
Mm-hmm.
to pause.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmothers never paused.
Right.
My mother never paused.
Right.
You grieve and you build simultaneously.
At the same time.
And I learned something from that the system doesn't stop for your pain.
It doesn't.
And but you get to decide. You get to decide if that pain makes you bitter or if it makes you clear.
Yes.
And for me, I chose clear.
That's so true. I remember when my mom passed, and I remember going into a store and everybody was going about their business, and I remember wanting to just stop and tell somebody, my mom passed, because it
Right.
hurt so deeply. And even now I'm going through that. My grandmother's on hospice. I'm sad to see her go, but I know she's lived a full life at the age of 92. But I attend this mastermind. A friend of mine has a mastermind group, and we meet every 3 weeks or so. And today was our meeting, and she wanted an update from me for the group.
Right.
And she said, so, Rhoda, I know you're exploring, looking for your next opportunity, but what else you got going on? And I started saying everything I was involved in. And she was like, woo, you got a lot going on. I said, well, you know what? And I didn't even tell them a part about my grandmother.
Oh.
But I decided to, no matter what happens in life, I'm going to show up and I'm going to take up space. And a tip to get through all that we have to get through, because we don't always get to pause. It came to me one day is to just move through the moments. And I just moved through them. And next thing you know, you look back, look at all what you have accomplished and moved through.
Oh, that's so powerful.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry about your grandmother.
She'll be with the Lord. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord.
Amen.
So you've mentored Jada, and I've kind of like adopted you. Like, I knew you through my good friend, and I just reached out to you one day and said, hey, will you do a presentation with me at a women's
so much
conference?
fun.
Yes. And ever since then, I've just been there. Like, Jada is somebody who I admire and somebody I want to be connected with. And so you've mentored and supported many professionals throughout your career. Why is mentoring such an important responsibility for leaders?
Oh, I can reflect for me because someone opened a door for me. Inroads, my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Other leaders who saw something in me before I saw it in myself.
Right. Yes.
And you don't know it at the time, but none of us get here on our own. There's always someone helping. I mean, nobody. I don't care who it is. But for me, mentoring is not just paying it forward, right? Because you feel like if somebody gives you something, you need to give. But for me, it's not just that. It is the highest form of leadership development.
Yes.
Because when you mentor someone, you have to articulate what you know.
Yes.
You have to challenge your own assumptions. You have to admit what's worked and what didn't work. Because as you're imparting that experience, you don't want to sugarcoat.
Yes.
You want to give them all of it so they don't have to reinvent that pain.
That's true. That's so true.
And so what I found that was a pleasant surprise or silver lining is that mentoring sharpened me as much as it developed them. It gave my voice more clarity. And so the legacy for me is not what you build.
Yes.
It's who you build.
Yes.
And I used to put on my resume how many people got promoted from under me.
Yes.
Until I got to the point where you're like, that's just supposed to happen.
Right.
You're in a position that should just happen. But the organizations will restructure, titles will change, people will retire, turnover will occur. But the people you poured into, they carry your leadership forward.
Yes.
Long after you've left the room.
That's so true.
And for me, it's really about the who, not the what.
That's so powerful and inspirational and so very true. Yes. I remember when I worked at a large healthcare organization here, it was a Epic implementation and I was over the training. So it was a lot of turnover. You know, you're hiring and people leaving the training department to go to the build side because they can make more money, get certified, etc. I was like, hey, what I need to do to get you there?
Right.
I'm willing to do that.
That's right.
So one of the executives in the system stopped me one day at a meeting and she said, I heard you running people off over there. And I said, no, actually, I'm hiring people, pouring into them, developing them, and seeding the organization with some really good talent. And I counted one time, and I used to put that on my resume too. I promoted 33 people over a 5-year period as a result of that. And I opened a lot of doors for people from having that opportunity. And to your point, they're paying it forward. And so I don't want to be the one that they're taking bad practices and going forward with those. I want it to be healthy, positive things. So
it's so good because when people know that you care, then they work hard.
Yes.
You know, and they want to then care for others.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, Jada, you mentioned, you know, being an African-American executive, female, and as an African-American woman in senior leadership, what lessons did you learn about navigating leadership spaces that were not always built for you?
Yeah, those spaces were never built for me, right? The playbook was not written for me. The assumptions about what leadership looked like, sounded like, moved like, none of that was designed with me in mind. And but here's what I learned. That was not a disadvantage.
Right.
That was a superpower. Because when you've spent your career navigating systems that may not always be designed for your success or may not always see you.
Right.
You develop a kind of sight that people who fit naturally don't have.
Right.
You see the architecture. You see who's included, who's invisible.
Right.
And the higher you climb, you see the gap between the values on the wall and the decisions being made in the room.
Yes.
And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. That scene, that's what I bring to any engagement. And that's what I did inside the house and what I plan to do outside the house, right? In my own business, is helping organizations develop that sort of sight.
Yes.
Not because they're failing, but because they don't have that advantage of seeing it through that lens. And they have blind spots because they've never had to.
That's right.
And I have that sight that I can see. So I think that is, that's how I've navigated those spaces so well.
I love the reframe. I love it. It's a superpower.
Yes.
It's so true.
Yes.
What advice do you give women who want to grow their leadership voice without losing their authenticity?
You know, it's pretty simplistic because I thought when I read that question, I thought it should be more complex than that. It should be more powerfully wise. But I would say stop. Stop performing belonging.
Yes.
Just stop that. Because you can't lead with authenticity from a place where you're constantly translating yourself for other people's comfort. I used to say at 4'11 3/4, I can't shrink anymore.
Right.
You know, I have to be able to stand all nearly 5 feet tall. And it's exhausting when you're trying to morph yourself just so others can feel comfortable.
Yes, true.
And when you are performing, they don't trust you. Even if it's a good performance, you just don't trust it. So the voice some women may be looking for, it's not a new voice.
Right. It's the voice they were born
It's
with.
the voice they've always had.
Yes.
It's the one they've been suppressing because someone said it's too loud, it's too much, it's too direct, it's too something.
Yes.
Right? And so I would encourage that the leadership voice that you have is your authentic voice, and it was there before you start filtering it to satisfy somebody
That
else.
is so.
So just go back to that.
Yes.
Just lead from who you actually are, not from where you think people want to see you lead from. Because the leaders I've worked with, you know, if you watch the space and you watch who is included, they don't have those hangups.
They don't.
They say what's on their mind, and they say it with confidence, and there's no apology.
None.
And when we all get to lead from that place,
it's free.
That's the value we add. It's unique.
It is. I always say that when you are not being your authentic self, you are not only depriving yourself, but you're depriving the world of the gift of you.
Yes.
We were uniquely created with the DNA we have, with the personalities we have, for a reason. And to suppress that, and we've all been in that position where you may have been tempted to or felt the need to. And I struggle with not being able to suppress who I am. And I'm glad for that. And I tell people all the time, look, I'm not for everyone. And there is a organization that needs a Rhoda Banks. Not every organization wants or sees the value of it, but that one that do, they'll be grateful for it. So I don't think that the advice has to be overly complicated. That is real.
Just be who you are.
Just be who you are. So,
and you're right. You'll find your tribe.
Yeah, you'll find your people.
Yes.
Yeah. So after serving as a CHRO in multiple large organizations, you moved into executive coaching at this season of your life. What inspired that transition?
You know, I'm going to get to that. You know, I made a pivot and just made it this week, actually. Right. And so I'm not necessarily calling it executive coaching anymore as much as I'm calling it advisory.
Okay.
And the reason being is that what I did inside organizations so well is I stepped into critical people moments, you know, and I diagnosed what was working, what was getting in the way. And I want to help organizations do that because interview processes and consultants who've never sat in the seats, they can't get there.
They can't.
And I can. So I created this rare seat, which is a diagnostic. And it's really the work I've been doing for over 20 years that I'm now saying there's a market for this. And, you know, it can lend itself to just being an engagement, or it can lend itself to some fractional work, or it can lend itself to some coaching or advisory work of the person who fills the seat, or it can, quite frankly, help accelerate a not ready yet internal candidate. So I'm excited about that space.
That sounds exciting.
But to answer that question about why now and what led to the transition, the transition happened because for the pivot of the work is because I know that's not being done. But in January of 2025, I made my exit out of corporate America. And I wasn't alone. Over 300,000 Black women left the workforce that same month. Some by choice, some not. I'm fortunate. I turned mine into Simply Jada.
Simply Jada. I love it. I love it, Jada. So you talked about performing. Many leaders perform leadership rather than truly living it.
Yes.
What does authentic leadership look like in practice? You know, you spoke about it from the space lens of voice, but what does it look like?
I swear, you and I are so in sync because this has been part of a platform I've been operating off of for a long time. And you heard me say earlier, just stop performing. Right? And so in this space, I've seen leaders that are beloved, like yourself, because I've heard a lot of great things about your leadership. I want to turn that back to you. And there's some that or effective.
Mm-hmm.
And the rare ones are both.
Right.
They figure out how to be both.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is leaders who perform leadership, they are managing perceptions, right? They're curating how they're seen.
Yes.
Leaders who live it are managing impact.
Yes.
And they focus on what their leadership does or creates around them.
Yes.
What's the impact to the people around them? And so authentic leadership in practice looks like consistency.
Yes.
And it's the leader whose team says the same thing about them, whether they're in the room or not. It's that leader who, when they go to the company picnic and they meet that teammate's family,
yes,
it's that leader where the family says, "Oh, you're Rhoda," in a happy voice,
yes,
right?
yes.
Because they know their loved one who works for you comes home filled,
yes,
and not that example you gave earlier, defeated and deflated
yes,
because of your leadership style. And so it's that leader who still has to make hard calls, but explains why.
Right.
They care enough to tell the why. And it's that leader who says, "I don't know," without a ripple of lack of confidence in the room.
Right.
People figure that leader is going to figure it out, and I'm still with him or her.
Right.
And so it's the leader who understands that it doesn't matter what their intent is if the impact doesn't net them what they want.
Yes. Yes.
And so being authentic means you care about all of that, and that your people know you care about them.
Yes.
And you still get the work done.
Yes.
You get the outcomes, or you exceed those goals. That's what it is for me.
Oh, I mean, whatever company or whichever companies employ you for advancement, they're getting a gem. And I'm just saying this to those that are listening or will be listening to this podcast. Simply Jada. Jada, what's your website if they want to reach you?
Simplyjada.com. Thank you for that.
Let's keep it
that
simple.
Shameless plug.
Yes.
Thank you.
So when leaders feel pressure, what is the first mindset shift they need to make to lead more effectively?
Again, it's not just the pause, but it's stop.
Yes.
Before anything else, just stop. Because you don't have to stop for a day or even an hour, but just take a few minutes to pause. Just long enough to clear that windshield. I mean, that's my focus is always forward. And when leaders are under pressure, the windshield gets foggy. And everything feels urgent. Every decision feels hard.
Right.
Like it's high stakes. And too often, the instinct is to go faster.
Yes.
And I just have this natural ability to just pause.
Right.
Because if the windshield's already foggy and you're going too fast, you're going to crash.
Right.
And in a room of confusion, if you look around, I'm zen. I am zen because that's where I get clarity. So the first mindset shift is to go from reaction to reflection.
Yes, from reaction
Ask
to reflection.
Ask a few questions, right? Like, what's unclear? What's already working?
Right.
And what could work even better?
Yes.
And I think just getting yourself settled on that will give the shift that one needs for clarity in just 5 minutes.
Right.
And so pressure doesn't create bad leadership. It reveals patterns.
Yes.
And I've seen people who just shocked me because they did some things under pressure that I'm like, whoa,
you had never seen that, right?
And so if I'm 40 years prior and I had to give myself advice, it would be to shift that and to pause, because sometimes when leaders are misbehaving or behaving badly, it may be the environment.
Right.
And what do we need to do to make sure we're not putting leaders in bad places?
Yes.
Where they're feeling this pressure and to behave in a rash and rush way.
Right.
So I like to diagnose the condition too, which is when I pause and I go, okay, what's really happening?
Right.
And I think we would all be served better if we took a moment to do an assessment before we act.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, taking that pause, embracing that, and shifting from reacting to reflecting.
Mhm.
Wow. So, Jada, I'm going to shift.
Oh,
Speaking of
again?
shift,
Yeah. Oh,
I'm shifting.
okay.
I'm
Let's go.
shifting to rapid fire questions. I have 3.
All right.
The first one is, what is one leadership habit every executive should practice daily?
For me, it
Uh-huh.
is the pause,
The
right?
pause,
So
yes.
pause before you react. The windshield is always foggier when you're
Mhm.
moving too fast.
Mhm. Okay. What is the best career advice a mentor ever gave you?
Whew.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you're not in the room to be comfortable.
Mhm.
You're not at that table for comfort.
Mhm.
You're in the room to change what happens when you leave.
Wow.
That was said to me.
Wow. That's amazing. And what is one leadership mistake you see talented professionals make too often?
I see this a lot. Confusing proximity to power with having power.
Yes.
Sitting at the table doesn't mean that your voice carries.
The same
And
weight.
agency is not the same as access.
Yes. That is so profound. I'm glad we're recording this so we'll always have it. Yeah. I do have one closing question, and that is, what leadership legacy do you hope the people you mentor will carry forward?
I have to say, this was my favorite question because at this stage in my life, I get to look back and see a lot of the kids who are now some presidents of organizations. And, you know, I do feel profoundly, I feel deep about the obligations we have to one another. And I hope that the people I've poured into carry forward one thing, and that is that they have the courage to see clearly and the grace to act on what they see. Not out of rage, not to rescue, but to resolve. And I want them to look at the systems they're leading in, the beautiful words, the mission statements, the promises.
Right.
And I want them to have the courage to do the math and to ask, does this add up?
Yes.
And when it doesn't, to have the grace and grit to close the gap.
Yes.
I mean, that's the only way things change. Is if we have the courage to change them. So do it with clarity, do it with purpose, and most importantly, do it with love. And that's the legacy. Again, it's not what I built, it's who.
It's who. Oh my God, I love it. Jada, I could talk to you forever. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and your wisdom. I really appreciate it. Yeah, your story reminds us that leadership is not about a title.
No.
It is about the impact we have on others and the doors we open along the way. So from engineering to CHRO to advising organizations, individuals, leaders, whomever, your career shows what happens when leaders combine expertise with purpose and integrity. And to our listeners, if today's conversation resonated with you, and I can't see how it doesn't, share this episode with someone who is building their leadership journey. And remember this, real leadership is not measured by how far you climb. It is measured by how many people rise because you chose to lead. This is Breakthrough Conversations with Rhoda and Company. Until next time, thank you for listening.
Hey, what's your secret? You got the kind of vibe that leaves you speechless. It could be model multitasking genius, yeah, you got it all. Hey, what's your story? A kick-ass mom and 40 under 40. It's soccer practice in your high heel glory, yeah, you do it all.